Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Anything you would like to discuss today? Just alert you to the fact that I will not be available tomorrow. Anything today that interests you, worries you, bothers you, tickles your fancy, drives you nuts, or makes you laugh? Just going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to, just for the first part of the program, I'm going to conduct a little psychological test to see where your head is today, okay? I'm going to repeat a statement made by a parent yesterday. I'm not going to identify the parent. It relates to an attack on a Syrian immigrant teenager by a gang of young punks at Gloucester High School or near Gloucester High. I'm going to repeat her statement, and I'm going to ask your reaction both to the statement and the attack itself. This mother said, quote, well, I'm paraphrasing here. Well, the school board doesn't do anything, so the kids have no reason to be good. That's the gist of what she said. What do you think of that? The school board doesn't do anything, so the kids have no reason to be good. Do you agree with her? Did the young punks attack a defenseless kid because the school didn't teach them to be good? Is teaching young people how to behave the school's responsibility? Now, this mother is apparently not the only one who feels that this is the school's responsibility. About 3,500 people in the area have signed a petition asking for action from the school board and the Ministry of Education. Something to do with how the school can stop bullying, teach kids to stop bullying. What do you think? The school board and even the Ministry of Education, do you hold them responsible in any way for the attack on the Syrian kid? Whose fault is it? I mean, when kids go bad like that, whose fault is it? The school? The Ministry of Education? The baby Jesus? Whose fault is it? The bunny rabbit? I don't know. Schools? Or is it someone else's fault? It is true that if the school doesn't teach good behavior, well, many people think that means that the kids don't have any reason to behave, to be good. When kids go wrong, who do you blame? The schools? This require a little bit of thought, but the statement fascinated me because it seems so typical of a good deal of the reaction today. On Friday, we talked about sense of responsibility within the Native community. And here's another example of where it's somebody else's fault. These 5 punk kids, attacked this Syrian immigrant kid. We don't know the reasons behind it. But whatever happened, a group of young punks, kids, beat up on one kid. And somehow or other, this is the school's responsibility or somebody else's responsibility. It's not the kid's responsibility. Nobody taught them to be good. Well, if nobody taught them to be good, whose fault is that? So I leave that thought out there for you. I think that reaction seems to me to go to much deeper than just as it relates to this one particular incident. This idea that somehow or other, it's never the personal responsibility. And of course, it's not the parents' fault. The parents have no responsibility to teach their kid good behavior, do they? No, absolutely not. That's up to the schools. That's up to the police. That's up to somebody else. A parent? Teach kids responsibility, fair play? Oh, oh, not today. No way. On another topic, this is just pure foolishness, but the prime minister, the esteemed and obviously very brave Justin Trudeau, bungee jumped some 200 feet yesterday or the day before. He had a bungee cord attached to him, so he bounced back up. Too bad the economy couldn't bounce up the same. I stole that line from you, John.
It's still funny. I forgot that I said that earlier.
We hope, John and I hope that Pierre Poilievre picks up on that line.
Right.
Mr. Prime Minister, sir, we noticed that there was some bungee jumping going on and a great rebound. Is it any possibility that you could rebound the economy the way you did, sir? I hope he hits that. Anyway, I just thought that you may have a thought or two. One of the things that interests me, bugs me just a little bit, is that the bungee jumping actually took place almost in what used to be my backyard. Still is almost the backyard of my former wife, who still lives up near Farm Point. And there's an aside issue on this. Once again, the media can't get anything straight. The media is reporting that the bungee jump is in Chelsea. Well, it's not in Chelsea. It's nowhere near Chelsea, okay? I mean, it's about 20 miles away, and the media can't even get a location, correct? It's right on the edge of Wakefield, and it's very near the little village of Farm Point. It's not, that's a small thing, I know. But it seems to me, if the media can't even get the location of something 20 miles away, what else are they making mistakes on? So I just throw that out as well. But I really am interested to know your reaction to 3,500 people signing a petition demanding that the school board do something about these kids attacking. And by the way, it seems to me that it was the leftists in our community who insisted that we not have any police in our schools anymore. I just throw that in as an aside thought here. But the idea that do the schools have any responsibility to teach behavior? I thought the school's responsibility was to teach mathematics, history, geography. But now apparently you've got to teach kids good behavior. And if they don't, according to this one parent, there's no reason for the kids to be good. John, any reaction to this point?
Absolutely. And we are on Facebook. We are on Twitch, YouTube, and, of course, on blasttheradio.com. Even easier now, by the way, btrradio.com. Heard
good.
Around the world. There you go. See? I listened.
By the way, if you're listening in Russia, tell your great leader there not to push the nuclear button, okay? Boy, oh boy, that's getting pretty scary over there.
It is.
Pretty scary. I go back. Our Joe Biden would never use this statement, but it's still pretty appropriate. Back in the days of Donald Trump, when someone talked about, Putin's got his finger on the button, and Trump just responded, well, my button is bigger.
Yep.
I thought that's the most appropriate response. So I just keep that in mind. We do have a few listeners apparently in Russia.
Yep.
Your leader is mad. He's gone mad. John, what sort of reaction are we getting here?
Let's begin with this from your friend Terry Toll. Did Sophie push him?
Not that we know.
Okay.
No, he was with his two children, apparently. Good for him. Doing the fatherly thing. Whether the kids bungee jumped, I don't know. But Trudeau did.
Carl. No, Singh did. Okay. And says, I watched this video and these punks should be punished. This is bad parenting. Richard says schools need to start teaching what happens if. What I mean is, if you let kids know at a young age, if you get a criminal record, it stays with you for life. It could be removed off the records after the prescribed number of years. But when applying for a job that requires security clearance, the way the question is asked about have you ever been charged with a criminal offense, you need to answer yes, although the
Wait a
criminal
minute.
record has been
Okay, that's
pardoned.
all fine.
Yep.
You really think that's a school's responsibility?
I also don't think that's going to scare the crap out of a kid. They're too young to even think,
No, but I
realize
mean,
what
I
it means.
think there's a real question here is, wait a minute, why is this the school's responsibility? I mean, surely to God, this is a parental responsibility to teach kids there are consequences. And I'm going to tell you something. If the kid doesn't then understand there are consequences, by the time they're teenagers in high school, they ain't never going to learn. Okay. Go ahead, John.
Craig suggests that if Sophie pushed him, she would have made sure he was not tied up. Carrie agrees with you. It's not up to the school board to discipline the kids. And over to Murray. It all starts at home. Glenn says this reflects back on the parents. What a ridiculous statement, says Mike. I think he's referring to what the mother had to say. Jules is on Twitch. She says it should start with the guardians. Craig says when and where there is no accountability, you will find discourse. The fault starts with the parents and with our schools. So he's putting both under the bus, so to speak. Lynn says
Well,
it also.
let's refine the question here.
Okay, sure.
I'd like to ask people if they think that the schools have any responsibility relating to the child's behavior, other than the child's behavior in the classroom. Obviously, they have some responsibility there, but as far as the child's behavior, knowing the difference between right and wrong, understanding that there are consequences, is that the school's responsibility? Really? I really question that. I mean, if that's the school's responsibility, then what is the parent's responsibility? Go ahead, John.
I would suggest it may be both parties' responsibility. It starts at home, but it's up to the school to reinforce it, no?
I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what people have to say.
All right. Glenn says can't name the kids, so what are the consequences? Not a popular position, but it is mine. On YouTube, Woodenhead says the school has a responsibility. If the kids do not want to behave, they should not be allowed at that school. Therefore, it's now the parents' problem, where it should be. Richard is back. He says, yes, it is the school's responsibility to teach quote-unquote civics. There are families that come to Canada who do not understand our Canadian laws, so the schools need to introduce the concept of repercussions. Otherwise, home is where it all starts.
No, wait a minute. Hold it. So now the schools are responsible for teaching immigrants the Canadian way of life? Oh, wait a minute. Hold it. Let's give this a little bit of thought here. Go ahead, John.
Let's go to Anne. She says, it is like a lot of parents today have absconded their responsibility to actually parent their kids and teach them proper behavior and morals and the difference between right and wrong. Where has that gone? It used to be that way. Who gives birth to the kids? Society? No, the freaking parents, she says.
That's very true. Here, one of my points is this. If those kids, the teenagers that beat up the Syrian, if they had proper parenting, they would not have done that. As a matter of fact, if they had proper parenting, instead of beating up the kid, if they saw someone else beating up a kid, 4 or 5 people ganging up, they would have gone in to try and stop it. That's what responsible parenting teaches children. You know what? If you think of it, most kids that you know, I'm sure, if they saw 4 or 5 teenagers beating up on a kid, would they go in and join? No. They've had good parents. You've been good parents. They would go in and try to get them to stop. Wait a minute. You can't gang up on someone like that. I mean, that's, to me, you know what? To me, that you teach a child that when he's still in diapers. Maybe I'm just too old-fashioned here, folks. Go ahead.
So let's take what happened to this Syrian student and move it over to what happened this weekend, once again, following the Panda game at Ottawa U. Whose responsibility is it for those students acting the way they continually behave following, for whatever reason, the Panda game?
Yeah, it's very true. I can understand kids partying, But I'm going to tell you, the kids that have been raised with responsible parents would not be creating property damage. They would not be damaging. And I don't believe that they would be doing things to really disturb residents in the area. Um, I, it's a little something like this is a little bit different, but if people have some
It
thoughts
is,
on that,
but I mean,
yeah,
who's ultimately responsible for this misbehavior? And the other question I have, and I know we're sort of going down a different path here, but why does this continually happen at Ottawa U, and you never hear about anything happening at Carleton U?
I don't know. It happens at Queens as well, as
Oh
you know.
yeah, and it happened to Peterborough too. They were flipping cars and stuff in Peterborough on the weekend.
But it seems to me that if the child, the student knew that if they did something, if they got arrested, for example, that their parents would be just beside themselves, would be very upset, would hurt their parent. I just don't think that they would do that. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was a kid, the only thing that really worried me was, Jesus, don't tell my mother.
Right?
I was so afraid of if my mother found out, or my grandfather, or whatever it was.
Right there with you.
As a matter of fact, one of my grandfathers said this. I'll never forget. He said, if you get the strap at school, you come home, you're going to get it again. Now, I don't necessarily
Wow.
agree with that, but still, the message there was that, listen, you know what? You have a responsibility, and you have to answer to us as parents or grandparents. Go ahead, please.
All right, regarding the Panda game, and I'm sorry I took us down a different path. I just sort of
that's
thought
fine. No,
they
that's
kind of
great.
related. Yeah, Craig says they're all looking for the attention they never got from their mom and dad, and yet mom and dad are probably footing the bill for that university education. I'm just saying. Caroline, pardon me, says, if it happened on the school grounds, it should be the school's responsibility. The parents definitely have the primary responsibility, and the two should be working together. Maggie says, things have changed since the Young Offenders Act. Kids know they can get away with anything these days.
Well, that means that they're not afraid of their parents. They don't mind embarrassing their parents.
And they're not.
I mean, John, I know that your situation's a little different, but maybe not. But can you imagine? I mean, if I had ever been hauled off to jail, I mean, I would have been so embarrassed. So I would not wanted to show myself around my house for the next 5 years, for God's sake. The fact that these kids, they know they're going to get, and they don't care, they'd thumb their nose. In fact, they'll jump on a police cruiser. Go ahead, John.
No, I mean, you and I were brought up exactly the same, despite the difference in our ages. I mean, you are the same age as my parents, and I had a healthy fear of my parents and of authority, teachers, police officers, absolutely, and I still do.
But it's not just John. I don't think it's just fear. You did not want to disappoint your parents. That was the major factor.
I will agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God. Coming home in a police car? How? I'd be mortified. Mortified. All right. The Young Offenders. This is a text, by the way. The number here, 613-413-2217. Thank you, Deb. Good to hear from you. She says, the Young Offenders age should be reduced to 14 and their names made public. If they don't know right from wrong by 14, they never will know, she says.
Probably.
Here's another text. The parents have to instill values and morals. The school should try to uphold them, but their hands are tied by their liberal ideals, like trying to grant everyone their own pronouns. But yes, the parents are probably lacking in discipline. Sorry, I messed that up. Let's go to Richard again. He says, I was born right here in Ottawa, and when I went to school way back when, in the 70s, we had civic classes to better understand the rights and obligations of citizens in society. I guess time has passed us by. I'm old-fashioned as well, Lowell, he says. Mike says,
it's all very well. It's all very well for the school to teach civics and so forth. I agree with that. But the child at the earliest age has got to be taught. For example, sometimes you will see a little kid, maybe even in diapers, hit another kid. Well, you can't. At that point, surely the parents got to intervene and very kindly point out that you can't do that. That to me. Anyway, I'm rambling here. Go ahead.
No, I get what you're saying. Let's get a word in here for Shields. We'll get to other comments here in just a moment.
I'll tell you this. The Shields family had good parenting.
All
You,
right.
you could
All
be
right. Showboat.
Shields was started by the grandfather, taken over by the father, and now the son. Same family since 1947. They run a good business, an honest business, and I keep pointing out, unlike a lot of the big box stores, they are an in-stock dealer. They've got the stock there. 90% of anything that you would want in the way of appliances, they have there. And they're an increasingly well stocked when it comes to Sony appliances as well. So just keep that in mind, folks. Good finance plans, everything that you could possibly want, very, very reasonably priced, very competitively priced. And like I've always said, just give them a chance. If you're in the market for an appliance of any kind, one appliance or you want a whole room full of appliances, in fact, if a whole room full of appliances, check with Shields. They'll give you a pretty good darn deal. Okay, Shields.ca. Go ahead, John.
All right, the question that is on the screen for the benefit of those listening on the audio only stream: the school board doesn't do anything, so the kids have no reason to be good. This is the victim's mother saying that. So Lowell's question is, do the schools have any responsibility? We're also talking about the PM going bungee jumping. Your thoughts on that? I'm surprised more people haven't weighed in on that, actually. Let's go to Mike. He says there should be consequences if they behave like that at school, but teachers are there to teach them academics, not to teach them morals and how to behave.
Thank you.
Carrie says the bystanders would have gone to get some adults or gone to stop it themselves instead of taping it. That fascinates me too. I'm just going to stand here and tape it and not do anything. I find that very odd. Let's go to Glenn. He says one thing missing: respect in society as well. Carrie says we respected our parents and our teachers. Caroline is back to say parents, for the most part, are not requiring respect from their kids. Joshua says there used to be a healthy fear of disappointing one's parents. That seems more and more rare. Kids used to know that there would be a consequence.
At home. Actually, one of the it's a very good point. There was a video taken of that. So in addition to the kids pummeling this poor little kid, somebody stood by and recorded it rather than trying to interject and make them stop. And we see a lot of this. It just people will stand rather than saying, hold it, you guys, you can't stop it. You're going to hurt them. No, they stand there and take a picture of it, and I guess they get their jollies out of what, putting the picture on some website or something so that everybody can see 5 kids beating up one kid.
It's all about the social media account. Yep.
Jeez.
Yep.
You see, I hold the parents almost totally responsible. If your kid is not out there trying to break up fights, then he hasn't had, as far as she has not had proper parenting, as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead, John.
All right, your comments to 613-413-2217 on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and here's an email to Lowell@blasttheradio.com. Lowell, parents are responsible for teaching their kids. You want kids? You look after them. This parent, like many, not all, are trying to negate their responsibility to raise them. You don't want kids? Keep your legs crossed and keep your zippers closed while you're at it, says Lisa.
But so it's not just this one mother who said, "Oh, the kids have no reason to be good." In other words, she's saying that there's, the fact that you don't want to disappoint or anger your parents, that's irrelevant. But 3,500 people signed a petition asking for action from the school board. Now, if we'd had 3,500 people signing a petition asking that parents did a better job of raising their kids, I could understand and applaud that. But, asking the school board, wait a minute, there's something. Go ahead, John.
Comment on YouTube from James. He says if someone did not record it, they probably would not even be charged. Were there charges?
Yes, there are charges. Yes.
Okay. All right. I missed that. Thank you. Valda says, when it all starts at home, well, it all starts at home, she says. I raised 4 kids as a single mother. I worked 3 and 4 jobs, and they would not have dared pull this kind of BS. My oldest tells everybody it was like being raised in a boot camp. I ran a tight ship and raised 4 great people who are all very hard workers.
Good.
And he says, nowadays, parent video bad behavior of little kids as being a funny TikTok. Yep, there you go. It's all about the social media. The child learns the exact opposite from this.
I remember this several years ago. I was at a kids' hockey game. And one of the the parents, a couple of the parents in the stands began to fight, and I went
Yeah.
in immediately and broke it up. But I've been thinking, what kind of a message is that for the kids out on the ice? There are the parents fighting over somebody else's problem. It's go ahead, John. I'm really
And
rambling here.
nope, and we see that all the time, Lowell. I know exactly what you're trying to say. I hear
Yeah.
you. Yep. Let's go to Joshua. He's back with another comment. He says, the way things are, I'm not surprised that people wouldn't intervene for fear of reprimand. The kids may be told, you escalated the situation. It's an odd extension of the old axiom, find an adult.
I don't know. I guess times have obviously changed, but I grew up pretty rough and tumble. I didn't have a whole lot of parental supervision, except I knew there would be some very serious consequences if I was caught doing anything wrong. But we had a code, and one of the codes was that you didn't gang up. Okay, I had lots of fights, but it was one on one, and there was a code there. And
Yep.
if you saw 4 or 5 kids ganging up on one, the code, even the kids from the roughest neighborhoods say, hold it, that's unfair. It's unfair. And another rule was that you never kicked. So
Right?
this was just something that the kids did themselves. So obviously it's changed drastically.
Well, what do they see on TV, right? All this kickboxing and MMA stuff. So, I mean, but listen, when I grew up, that same thing. You don't kick somebody. And I was so relieved in grade 6, I had to get glasses. And it was like my get out of jail free card. You can't hit a guy wearing glasses.
That's right. And you couldn't hit a girl.
100%.
Couldn't hit a girl. You couldn't hit a guy with glasses.
100%.
And you couldn't kick a guy. And you could fight.
Whole hair, couldn't
Oh,
spit. Yep.
There were rules. I mean, as I said, I had lots of fights, but it was always one-on-one. And go ahead.
Did you win more than you lost, though?
I won most. Yeah, go ahead.
Attaboy, Lowell Green. All right. 613-413-2217. Today's kids are taught that each is, quote unquote, special, that children at 6 years old can choose their gender, that white privilege is real, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's just the schools. That says Ron.
But if the kids believe that they don't have the responsibility, that this is the school's fault. We have a fight in the schoolyard. This is the school's fault. Well, the school, obviously, if there's a fight in the schoolyards, somebody better get in and break it up. But the fact that you've got a bunch of kids ganging up on one, that's not the school's fault.
James is on Facebook. He says, I have made it clear from day one to all 3 of my kids. I'm your parent first. I'm your friend second. Mike says, maybe it's time to do something now. Remember how bad it was in the same places in the States years ago? Teachers were afraid of some of the kids. Carl says, if you physically interfere, you'll get charged with assault or get attacked yourself. But
No, it's not true.
do something.
It's not true.
Gary says there are no rules anymore, mostly outnumbered, and knives and even handguns are involved. That's true. That is true. That fear is
Why is that, though? Why is that?
No.
We all know the consequences here, but why is this happening? Is it the school's fault? This is the point. Is it the school's fault? Is it the Ministry of Education's fault? Is it, I don't know, somebody else's fault? Or is it the parents' fault that they did a lousy job raising this kid? Let's be very honest here. I'm not suggesting that every kid that goes bad, it's the parents' fault. We all know situations where there are good parents and there's just a bad seed or whatever it is. But by and large, the bulk of the problems with kids is that they didn't have proper parenting. Go ahead.
Hey, if you ever miss an episode, don't forget you can find the Lowell Green Podcast wherever you download your podcast, or just ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green Podcast. All right, Carolyn is back. She says, it's a change in the way we are disciplining our children. The buck stops with the parents.
Let me give you another example. This is my wife, Debbie. Years ago, when our daughter, she was out on the street, and a kid drove by very fast, hit her, and broke her leg. So Debbie, I thought, well, this is brilliant. Obviously, Danya's got a cast on her leg, and she takes Danya down the street to confront the boy that hit her, to show the boy the consequences. This is what happened when you drove your bike and knocked my daughter down. Now she has a broken leg. It's all in the cast. And by the way, the little boy's parents agreed with what she did. So I'm just saying that there's an example right there. the kid obviously saw the consequences of what he did. I bet you dollars to donuts that kid never sped around anybody with his bike again in his life. Go ahead, John.
Same thing happened to me when I got involved in an incident as a kid and the parents showed up at my doorstep. And yep, I was humiliated, embarrassed. And yeah, you work your ass off to never be in that situation again. All right, go to Ann on Facebook. What scares me is that the parents and the kids acting out think there's nothing wrong. Personal responsibility, she says, has gone out the window. Craig says, Lowell, you mentioned the school is taking no responsibility. Does that mean they won't discipline either?
No, you have discipline in the classroom, but the lack of discipline is not the school's fault. It's the school's responsibility in the classroom to make sure that there's discipline. Other kids aren't disrupted. But the school is not responsible for creating the kid who's disrupting. That's the parents, okay?
We've got about 30 seconds left and 6 comments. I'll go quickly through these just so we can get them in. Lynn says it all starts at home. Treat people as you would want to be treated. Carl says it's the parents' responsibility. Mike is in to say you can't rely on the schools for behavior judging on what I have seen being taught. Murray says bring the strap back and watch the bullying stop. Kathy, your child is who they turn out to be by the way they are raised. Yes, school boards can do more, but in the end, it is the responsibility of the parent to raise their children with a proper upbringing. We got lots of leftover comments, but we will leave it at that for today, sir.
Thank you all. Back on Thursday. I'm not here tomorrow. I'll be back on Thursday. Thank you all.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.